The item you are about to hear was recovered from a municipal records annex, scheduled for demolition following a routine consolidation of city-owned properties. The building itself was unremarkable. Constructed in the late 1980s, 8 floors above ground, 2 below. No history of litigation, no reported structural defects, no prior incidents beyond the ordinary. The file was not catalogued with any department of note. Facilities, security, internal communications, a collection of documents that, under normal circumstances, would have been destroyed without review. They were not flagged for preservation because of what they contained, but because of what was missing. Entire sections of maintenance logs were blank, timestamps repeated, file headers referenced attachments that were never found. Several audio recordings were indexed, yet only one remained accessible, and even that file shows signs of partial overwrite. At first glance, the records appear to document a minor elevator malfunction, a sensor fault, a software irregularity, the kind of issue that occurs frequently in buildings of that age and design. Yet, the number of cross-references quickly exceeded what would be expected for a simple mechanical failure. Emails forwarded to departments that did not exist, incident reports closed without resolution, security footage logs indicating camera outages that coincided too precisely to be coincidence. Most concerning were the floor directories. According to city planning records, the building contained 8 occupied floors. No mezzanine, no service level between floors, no unfinished construction. The elevator control schematics confirm this. Every programmed stop accounted for. No phantom addresses, no test modes left active. And yet, throughout the recovered material, there are repeated references to a 9th destination. The language used is consistent across departments. Not metaphorical, not speculative. They do not say an extra floor. They say the floor. Employees describe arriving at it without intending to. Maintenance personnel log service checks they do not remember performing. Security officers note patrol gaps they cannot explain. No one claims to have discovered it. They only claim to have been taken there. What makes this file difficult to classify is not the suggestion of an anomaly, but the restraint shown by those who encountered it. There are no reports of panic, no accusations of conspiracy, no attempts to alert external authorities. The tone remains professional, measured, procedural, as though everyone involved understood instinctively that acknowledging the full scope of what was happening would require admitting something they were not prepared to name. The building was eventually closed, its occupants reassigned, the elevator system powered down. Demolition proceeded on schedule. This file should have ended there. It did not. Several years later, fragments of similar documentation began appearing in unrelated archives. Different buildings, different cities, identical phrasing, the same floor number, the same gaps, the same absence of witnesses who could clearly explain what they had seen. What follows is a reconstruction of the recovered materials, presented in chronological order where possible. Some sections remain incomplete, others may overlap. Where the record is silent, I have not speculated. I have only preserved what was found. The first report appears in the facility's maintenance log on a Tuesday morning. The entry is brief, routine, written in the shorthand common to technicians who expect no one else to read their notes. Elevator 2 stopped between floors again. Control panel briefly displayed 9. Reset system. No further issues observed. There is no follow-up comment. No escalation. The ticket is marked resolved within 20 minutes. At the time, the building had only been open for a little over 3 years. The elevators were still under warranty. Minor software glitches were not unheard of. A firmware update had been applied the previous quarter after intermittent display flicker issues were reported in both elevator cars. Nothing about the note stands out on its own. The next reference appears 4 days later. This time it is an email sent from an administrative assistant on the 6th floor to the facility's inbox. The subject line reads simply, "Elevator question." She writes that the elevator doors opened on a floor she did not recognize while she was riding alone to the parking garage. She describes neutral carpeting, beige walls, overhead lighting identical to the rest of the building. She apologizes for bothering them and suggests she must have pressed the wrong button. Facilities responds within the hour, assuring her there is no such floor and asking whether the elevator may have briefly stalled between levels. She replies that the doors opened fully. There is no record of further correspondence. Over the next 2 weeks, similar messages appear. An analyst from the 4th floor reports arriving at work earlier than usual because the elevator skipped something and went straight from the lobby to his floor in less time than normal. A contractor notes that the elevator paused and displayed a number that looked wrong, though he cannot recall what it was. None of the reports use alarming language. No one suggests anything impossible. They all frame the experience as personal confusion. Facilities continues to log minor resets, software reboots, sensor calibrations. Each action clears the fault temporarily. Then a new variable enters the record. Security begins documenting camera outages. The building's elevators are equipped with interior cameras tied directly into the security office. The footage is archived automatically and reviewed only when an incident is reported. On 3 separate occasions, the interior camera feed from Elevator 2 drops for intervals ranging between 12 and 20 seconds. Each outage coincides exactly with a logged maintenance reset. Security assumes a wiring issue. Facilities requests a replacement camera unit. The replacement is installed. The outages continue. During one of these outages, a security officer notes something unusual in the hallway footage. According to the timestamp, the elevator doors open on the 5th floor at 10:14 in the morning. The hallway camera shows no one exiting, no one entering. But the elevator interior feed, which resumes immediately after the doors close, shows a woman standing inside the car who was not there before. The officer writes that he assumed she entered from the blind spot of the hallway camera. He does not escalate the report. It is only later, when the same woman files a complaint, that the incident is revisited. Her name appears multiple times throughout the file. She works in accounting, mid-30s. No prior disciplinary history. No known issues with anxiety or attention. Her complaint is formal. She states that she entered elevator 2 alone in the lobby. She selected the 5th floor. The doors closed. Instead of stopping on 5, the elevator slowed, then stopped. The display read 9. The doors opened. She describes stepping out briefly, thinking she had exited on the wrong floor. What she saw did not alarm her. She describes a hallway that mirrored the rest of the building. Same carpet pattern, same emergency exit signage, same off-white paint. What she found strange was the silence. Normally, the building hummed, HVAC noise, distant conversation, phones ringing. This floor was quiet. She walked several steps down the hall before realizing there were no windows at the end, only a blank wall. She returned to the elevator. The doors were still open. When she stepped back inside and pressed 5 again, the elevator immediately descended. She arrived on the 5th floor seconds later. She assumed she had somehow wandered into a mechanical level or unfinished space. Her complaint requests clarification, not action. Facilities responds that there is no 9th floor and thanks her for reporting the issue. Security reviews the footage again. The interior camera feed cuts out the moment the elevator stops. When it resumes, she is already inside, standing closer to the control panel than before. The hallway cameras show nothing. No door opening, no hallway. Only the 5th floor when the elevator finally arrives. The security officer notes that this cannot be correct. He checks the timestamp. The gap lasts 19 seconds. Longer than any previous outage. He flags the footage for follow-up. Nothing comes of it. Over the next month, the reports increase. Not in volume, but in consistency. Every report that mentions the number 9 follows the same pattern. The elevator is always occupied by a single person. The doors always open fully. The floor always appears maintained. No one reports signage indicating a company name or department. Desks are visible through open office doors, but no people. Several employees note that personal items are present on the desks. Coffee mugs, framed photos, stacks of paper. None of the items are identifiable as belonging to anyone in the building. One employee swears she recognizes a jacket hanging on the back of a chair. When asked whose jacket it is, she cannot answer. Facilities escalates the issue to the elevator manufacturer. A technician is dispatched. His service report is included in the file. He runs diagnostics on the control system, confirms there are only 8 programs stopped, confirms there is no manual override input. He rides the elevator multiple times. Nothing unusual occurs. He suggests intermittent electromagnetic interference and recommends shielding improvements. The work order is closed. 2 days later, the technician emails facilities. He states that he experienced something odd during a final test ride he forgot to mention. He writes that the elevator paused longer than expected between floors, but did not open. He apologizes for not reporting it earlier and says it is likely nothing. Facilities does not respond. The building manager begins to receive informal complaints. People report mild disorientation after using Elevator 2, a sense of having missed something, arriving at meetings without recalling the ride up. No one reports fear, no one reports injury, but productivity metrics show a slight decline. Security conducts an overnight test. 2 officers ride the elevator together multiple times. Nothing happens. They ride separately. Nothing happens. 1 officer rides alone after midnight. The elevator stops between floors. The display reads 9. The doors do not open. The officer radios security. By the time they respond, the elevator resumes normal operation. He is embarrassed by the report and suggests a momentary display glitch. The next night, a 2nd officer attempts the same test. The doors open. He does not exit the elevator. He reports seeing a hallway identical to the rest of the building, but longer. The lights flicker once. He presses the lobby button. The doors close. When they open again, he is back on the ground floor. Security logs the incident as unresolved. At this point, senior management becomes aware of the issue. A meeting is held. The meeting minutes are included in the file. They decide not to notify employees unless safety is compromised. They do not want to create panic over an unexplained but seemingly harmless anomaly. They instruct facilities to restrict Elevator 2 for maintenance. Signs are posted. Employees are told to use the other elevator. For 2 weeks, no incidents occur. Then an email arrives from an employee who claims she was taken to the 9th floor using Elevator 1. Facilities responds that this is impossible. Security reviews the footage. The interior camera feed drops out. The hallway cameras show nothing. The control panel logs show a stop that is not assigned. The display log records the number 9. The floor directories are updated. The 9th floor is not added. Instead, the directory is reprinted with a blank space where 9 would be. No explanation is given. Employees stop mentioning the floor by number. They begin referring to it as that stop, or simply the building remains operational. The elevators continue running. The reports continue accumulating, always calm, always precise, always incomplete. The decision to continue operating the building is documented in a single paragraph at the end of a risk assessment memo. The language is careful, legal. It states that no injuries have occurred, no mechanical failures have been confirmed, and no violation of safety codes can be substantiated. It recommends continued monitoring rather than closure. What it does not state is that by this point, nearly 1/3 of the building's occupants have experienced some form of irregular elevator behavior. The pattern is no longer subtle. The skipped floor does not appear randomly. It appears under conditions that, at first, seem coincidental. Late hours, low occupancy, single riders. Security begins tracking this informally, highlighting reports that occur outside peak traffic times. The correlation is strong enough that one officer writes a note in the margin of a daily log suggesting the elevators should be shut down overnight. The suggestion is not acted upon. Instead, additional cameras are installed, Hallway cameras are repositioned to better capture the elevator doors on every floor. The interior cameras are replaced again, this time with a redundant secondary feed routed through a separate recording system. Facilities assures management that this will eliminate blind spots. The first test occurs the following evening. At 11:47, the interior camera feed from Elevator 2 cuts out. The secondary feed continues recording. It shows the inside of the elevator car, empty, doors closed, descending from the 7th floor. The elevator slows. The display changes. The number 9 appears. The doors open. The camera records nothing beyond the threshold, not darkness, not a hallway, just absence. The frame beyond the doors does not resolve into static or blur. It is not underexposed. It is simply empty, as though the camera cannot perceive whatever lies beyond. After 14 seconds, the doors close. The elevator continues its descent. When security reviews the footage, they assume a technical failure, a corrupted file, a codec error. They replay it on different systems. The absence remains. A facilities technician suggests that the camera may have failed to auto-adjust exposure due to unusual lighting conditions. He requests permission to ride the elevator himself with a handheld camera. Approval is granted. The technician rides Elevator 2 repeatedly during normal hours. Nothing happens. He rides it alone after hours. Nothing happens. At 1:30 in the morning, he reports that the elevator stopped between floors but did not open. He shrugs it off. The following night, a cleaning contractor files an incident report. The report is written in broken sentences. The contractor's primary language is not English, but the meaning is clear. He states that the elevator took him somewhere he did not want to go. Security interviews him. He describes the doors opening onto a floor that looked like the rest of the building but felt wrong. He says the air was cold. He says the lights hummed louder than normal. He says he felt like he was late for something, though he could not say what. He did not exit the elevator. When asked why, he says he saw movement down the hall. Not people. Movement. Security presses him for details. He withdraws the complaint the next day and requests reassignment to a different building. By now, management is divided. Some believe the issue is technological. Others suspect a psychological phenomenon. Stress, suggestion, group reinforcement. An outside consultant is brought in. The consultant's report is thorough and dismissive. He concludes that the reports are the result of expectation bias combined with minor elevator malfunctions. He recommends removing any reference to the 9th floor from internal communications. The recommendation is followed. Emails referencing the floor are quietly archived. Incident reports are rewritten to remove the number. Employees are instructed to report only mechanical issues, not subjective experiences. For a short time, this works. The reports decrease. Then something changes. The elevator begins stopping on the skipped floor during business hours. Not often. Once every few days, always with a single occupant. One employee is taken there while on a phone call. The call does not disconnect. The person on the other end hears nothing unusual, no ambient noise, no indication that anything has happened. When the employee arrives at their destination floor, they have no memory of the skipped stop. The phone call log shows a gap of 22 seconds. The employee insists the call was continuous. Another employee arrives at a meeting carrying documents she does not recognize. They are printed on company letterhead. The names on them are familiar. The signatures are her own. She has no memory of preparing them. Security footage shows her exiting the elevator alone. The interior feed cuts out. When it resumes, she is holding the documents. Facilities attempts a software lockdown. They remove the 9th floor reference from the control firmware entirely, rewriting sections of the code that should not be accessible. The elevator passes inspection. The next day, the display shows 9 again. The number does not appear in the code. At this point, senior management authorizes a full shutdown of Elevator 2. The car is locked at the ground floor. Power is cut. Elevator 1 remains operational. For 3 days, there are no incidents. On the 4th day, Elevator 1 stops between floors. The display shows 9. The doors do not open. The interior camera feed cuts out for 11 seconds. When it resumes, the elevator is empty. Security reviews the footage repeatedly. The last person to enter the elevator is visible on camera. A systems analyst from the 3rd floor. He enters alone. The doors close. The elevator ascends. The feed cuts out. When it resumes, the elevator is empty. Doors closed, moving. Security checks the hallway cameras. The analyst does not exit on any floor. There is no footage of him leaving the building. His desk remains occupied. His computer is logged in. His access badge has not been used. He is reported missing later that evening when he does not return home. The police are notified. An investigation begins. Security turns over all footage. The police conclude that there is insufficient evidence of foul play. They suggest the analyst may have left the building without being seen. No one can explain how. The elevators are shut down entirely. Employees are told to use the stairs. Productivity drops sharply. Within a week, 2 more employees are reported missing. Both were last seen near the elevators. Both had reported prior experiences with the skipped floor. The building is evacuated. Management issues a statement citing infrastructure concerns. The police conduct a full search. They find nothing. During the search, a detective requests access to the elevator shafts. Facilities reluctantly complies. The detective rides in the service cage between floors. He reports hearing office sounds echoing from somewhere above the 8th floor. Phones ringing, printers running. Voices muffled by distance. Facilities insists there is no space above the 8th floor. The building plans confirm this. The detective requests a structural survey. The survey finds no anomalies, no extra floor, no hidden space. The police close the case pending new evidence. The building remains sealed. Power to the elevators is cut permanently. Security maintains a skeleton crew to monitor the site until demolition. During this period, one final incident occurs. A security guard on overnight duty hears the elevator bell ring. He checks the monitors. The interior camera feed is active. The elevator is moving. The display reads 9. The guard does not approach the elevator. He radios for assistance. By the time another guard arrives, the elevator has stopped. The doors are open. The camera shows nothing beyond them. The guard refuses to close the doors. He states that he can hear something. A phone ringing. Somewhere beyond the threshold. Facilities is called in the morning. The elevator is found closed, inactive, power disconnected. No record of movement exists in the system logs. The interior camera feed from that night is missing. Not corrupted. Missing. The building is demolished 2 months later. No remains are found. No explanation is offered. The missing employees are never located. The last recovered audio file is not labeled as such. In the index, it appears as a routine equipment test. The file name follows the same convention as dozens of other recordings generated automatically by the security system. Date, time, device ID. It is only when the file is opened that its contents become distinct. The recording begins in silence, not background silence, not the low electrical hiss present in most archived audio. This is a flat absence, as though the microphone has been isolated from the world around it. At 7 seconds in, a tone appears. It is low, steady, almost below the threshold of hearing. The timestamp confirms the recording device is active and functioning. At 12 seconds, the tone shifts. It resolves into the sound of an elevator in motion, cables under tension, the rhythmic vibration of machinery, the faint click of relays cycling through states. At 18 seconds, the elevator slows. The tone deepens. At 22 seconds, the chime sounds. The doors open. There is no change in the ambient sound. No air movement. No footfall echo. No hallway noise. The microphone captures nothing beyond the elevator car. At 35 seconds, a voice speaks. It belongs to a security officer. He is identified elsewhere in the file. Male, early 40s, 6 years with the company. No prior disciplinary action. His voice is calm. He says that the doors are open. He says that the display reads 9. He does not sound surprised. He says that he can see the floor. He pauses. He says that it looks like the rest of the building. Another pause. He says that it looks like it has been waiting. The audio remains clear. At 1 minute and 4 seconds, the officer inhales sharply. He says that the lights are on, but he cannot see where they end. He steps forward. The sound of his boots crossing the elevator threshold is audible. The elevator interior noise fades slightly, replaced by a wider acoustic space. At 1 minute and 18 seconds, he stops. He says that there are desks. He says that there are papers on them. He says that some of the papers are moving. At 1 minute and 30 seconds, he says a name. It matches one of the missing employees. He calls out. There is no response. At 1 minute and 45 seconds, a second sound enters the recording. It is subtle, a distant ringing, a a telephone. The officer comments on it without being prompted. He says that it sounds like it is coming from everywhere. At 2 minutes, he says that the air feels wrong. He does not elaborate. At 2 minutes and 12 seconds, he says that he thinks he has been here before. This statement appears nowhere else in the file. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the ringing stops. The silence that follows is different from before. It is layered. Faint office noise, the distant hum of systems, the suggestion of activity beyond walls that cannot be seen. At 2 minutes and 50 seconds, the officer says that he can see another elevator. He says that it is open. He says that there is someone inside. He stops speaking. For 6 seconds, the recording captures only the ambient hum. At 3 minutes and 2 seconds, the officer speaks again. His voice is quieter. He says that the person inside the other elevator looks like him. He laughs once. The laugh is short and involuntary. He says that the other elevator display also reads 9. At 3 minutes and 20 seconds, he says that the other version of him is not looking at him. He says that it is looking past him. At 3 minutes and 35 seconds, he says that there are more elevators. He says that they are all open. He says that all of them say 9. The audio captures a sound like movement, not footsteps, not machinery, something like paper being shifted in bulk. At 4 minutes, the officer begins breathing more rapidly. He says that the desks are occupied. He corrects himself. He says that they are being used. At 4 minutes and 18 seconds, voices become audible in the background. They are indistinct. Murmurs, fragments of conversation, the cadence of office speech without discernible words. The officer says that he recognizes some of the voices. He says that one of them belongs to him. At 4 minutes and 30 seconds, the officer asks if anyone can hear him. He asks if anyone is still upstairs. No response. At 4 minutes and 50 seconds, the ringing begins again. This time it is closer. At 5 minutes, the officer says that a phone is ringing on a desk directly in front of him. He says that the phone is old, not outdated. Old. At 5 minutes and 15 seconds, he says that the phone has his extension number. At 5 minutes and 30 seconds, he says that the caller ID shows his name. He hesitates. He says that he does not want to answer it. The ringing continues. At 5 minutes and 48 seconds, he answers. The audio captures a faint click. The ringing stops. For several seconds, there is no sound. Then the officer speaks. He says that the person on the line is asking where he has been. He says that they sound irritated. He says that they say he is late. At 6 minutes and 10 seconds, the officer says that the person on the line is explaining that the building has been waiting for him. At 6 minutes and 30 seconds, he says that the caller knows things he has not told anyone. He says that the caller knows how long he has been working security. He says that the caller knows about the nights he stayed late even when there was no reason to. He says that the caller knows about the first time he rode the elevator alone. At 6 minutes and 50 seconds, the officer says that the caller is asking him to step fully inside. The audio captures a sound like fabric brushing against plastic. The officer inhales sharply. At 7 minutes and 2 seconds, he says that the elevator doors behind him are closing. At 7 minutes and 15 seconds, the elevator interior noise disappears completely. The acoustic space becomes vast. The officer says that he can see floors above him. He says that there are more than 8. He says that there are more than 9. He stops counting. At 7 minutes and 40 seconds, he says that the caller has hung up. The ringing stops. The voices remain. At 8 minutes, the officer begins walking again. The sound of his footsteps echoes unnaturally, repeating longer than expected. He says that the desks are now occupied by people he recognizes. He names several of the missing employees. He says that they look busy. He says that none of them acknowledge him. At 8 minutes and 30 seconds, he says that he sees his own desk. He says that it is exactly where it should be. At 8 minutes and 50 seconds, he says that the computer screen is on. He says that it is displaying the security camera feed. At 9 minutes and 10 seconds, he says that he can see the elevator interior camera. He says that he can see himself standing inside the elevator. He pauses. He says that the version of him in the elevator is not holding a radio. At 9 minutes and 30 seconds, he says that the version of him in the elevator is waiting. At 9 minutes and 45 seconds, he asks what happens if he does not step inside. The audio captures no response. At 10 minutes, the officer says that the lights are dimming. At 10 minutes and 15 seconds, the ambient office noise increases. Phones ring. Printers activate. Footsteps move in every direction. The officer raises his voice. He says that he wants to leave. At 10 minutes and 30 seconds, he says that the elevator doors are open again. At 10 minutes and 45 seconds, he says that the elevator is empty. He laughs again. This time, the laugh is longer. At 11 minutes, the officer says that he understands now. He says that the building needs people. He says that it does not know how to make new ones. He says that it only knows how to reuse them. At 11 minutes and 20 seconds, the officer says that the other elevator version of him is stepping out. At 11 minutes and 35 seconds, he says that he is being asked to stay. At 11 minutes and 50 seconds, the officer's breathing steadies. At 12 minutes, he says that he will. The audio ends. There is no sound of elevator doors closing, no chime, no indication of return. The file ends abruptly, as if the recording device was powered down manually. No corresponding video footage exists. The security officer is officially listed as having resigned 2 days later. His badge is logged as returned. The signature on the form matches his handwriting. The date is correct. The time is not. The building is demolished 6 weeks later. The demolition crew reports no anomalies. The elevator shafts are empty. The floors align as expected. There is no 9th floor. There is no space where one should be. Yet in the debris inventory, there are desks, office chairs, telephones. They are listed as unaccounted for fixtures. No one can explain where they came from. The items are discarded. The file ends there. The file was archived under structural anomalies and marked inactive following the demolition of the building. At the time, there was no procedural reason to retain it beyond the unresolved missing persons cases. No formal conclusion had been reached, no mechanism identified, no liability assigned. In the absence of evidence, the matter was allowed to expire. What remains are fragments, maintenance logs that reference service calls no one remembers placing, security reports signed by personnel who no longer appear on payroll records, inventory discrepancies that cannot be reconciled with approved purchasing orders. The desks recovered from the demolition site were examined briefly before disposal. They were standard issue. No serial numbers, no identifying marks. Several contained personal effects that could not be matched to any known employee. Photographs were taken. Those photographs are missing. Of the 3 individuals reported missing during the final weeks of the building's operation, none were ever located. Their cases remain open, though inactive. Each is officially listed as having left the building voluntarily. One resignation form remains on file that does not align with this conclusion. The security officer, whose voice appears in the final recording, is recorded as having submitted his notice 2 days after the night of the incident. The form is complete. The signature is consistent. The exit interview checklist is marked in full. The timestamp indicates the form was submitted at 3:47 in the morning. The building's systems were offline at that hour. There is no explanation for how the form entered the record system. No follow-up interview was conducted. The officer does not appear in any employment database afterward. No tax records, no address changes, no death certificate. He does not appear again. Years after the demolition, a separate facilities department in another city submitted a routine inquiry to a third-party elevator manufacturer. The inquiry concerned an intermittent display fault involving an unauthorized floor number. The floor number was 9. The technician assigned to the case wrote in his report that the system did not contain that destination, that the firmware did not support it, that no physical space existed for it within the structure. He closed the ticket. 2 weeks later, he submitted an addendum stating that he believed he had made an error, that he may have seen the number briefly during a late-night diagnostic test. He apologized for the confusion. The addendum was filed. No further action was taken. Similar reports appear sporadically across unrelated archives, different buildings, different elevator models, the same restrained language, the same reluctance to assign meaning. Always the same number, always a single occupant, always an absence of corroborating footage. None of these reports reference one another. They do not need to. What distinguishes the original file is not the existence of an unexplained flaw, but the apparent consistency of its purpose. The spaces described are not chaotic. They are not hostile. They are not overtly threatening. They are functional. They resemble workplaces paused mid-task, offices left temporarily unattended, environments prepared for continued use. The individuals who encounter the floor do not report pain. They do not report violence. They report familiarity, recognition, a sense of obligation. This suggests intent. Whether that intent originates from a structural anomaly, a system's failure, or a phenomenon not adequately described by either category remains unresolved. The building itself no longer exists. Its materials have been dispersed, recycled, repurposed. If the floor existed as a physical space, it was destroyed. If it did not, its absence changes nothing. The elevators that once serviced that location have been stripped and sold. Their components now operate in other buildings, other cities, other shafts. No attempt has been made to track their deployment. This file is preserved not as a warning, but as a record, a documentation of what occurs when infrastructure continues its function beyond its original parameters. When systems designed to move people begin to accommodate them instead. The final audio recording has been reviewed multiple times. Each review produces the same conclusion. The officer was not coerced. He was not threatened. He was offered continuity. The building did not take him. It gave him somewhere to stay. The file remains open. No further action is recommended at this time. This concludes the recovered file. May future listeners take caution in its implications. The Archivist, Vault 13.